Ah yes, The Black Hole. My favorite Disney film that to this day I've still never truly understood the ending. There's a lot of different explanations for it, and one of the ones I finally got an answer to was through the novelization by Alan Dean Foster. That ending describes that, in a sense, the surviving cast of the Palomino crew did survive, but as a completely merged entity throughout space and time. Where the Disney film gave the impression that the Palomino crew did survive their harrowing trek through the black hole, this one is quite a different way of interpreting that, where, as I said, they did, but also they didn't. And I think that's simply due to the dual nature of the black hole. Even in the novelization, Maximilian and Reinhardt didn't merge together into one singular entity. They both simply died. Will we ever truly understand what happens when a person enters a black hole? From everything I've read, you simultaneously burn up and you're still completely fine because space and time switch places. Not that it matters in the long run anyway, you'll eventually hit the singularity, although you might live out your entire natural life, who knows? I guess we never will any more than the black hole itself did. In any case, here's the original video. The Black Hole was directed by Gary Nelson with a musical score by John Barry. Released on December 21st, 1979, The Black Hole was one of Disney's first major science fiction efforts trying to take on the juggernaut of the time, Star Wars. And, well, we all know how that one turned out. While not one of Disney's strongest releases, The Black Hole was known for several milestones and landmarks. The Black Hole was the first Disney film that had the PG rating due to its adult themes and mild profanity that was used throughout. The Black Hole was also the last mainstream Hollywood film to have an opening musical overture. The only other film that did at the time was Star Trek: The Motion Picture. The Black Hole cast consisted of the Palomino crew, which was Robert Forster, Anthony Perkins, Joseph Bottoms, Yvette Mimieux, Ernest Borgnine, and once on board the Palomino, they encountered Dr. Hans Reinhardt, played by Maximilian Schnell, and the robot Old Bob, who was voiced by Slim Pickens. While generally known for its family-friendly fare, The Black Hole took a darker tone that's still not often recognized by even modern Disney films today. This film features the crew of the Palomino encountering a spaceship that's impossibly balanced on the edge of a giant black hole. Once on board, they find a spaceship that is seemingly run by robots until they meet the true captain, Dr. Reinhardt. In addition to Dr. Reinhardt, he has a fearsome enforcer known as Maximilian, in which Vincent and Maximilian immediately dislike each other. To me, Maximilian is one of the greatest Disney villains of all time, the other two being the original animated Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty and the Horned King from The Black Cauldron. Maximilian is efficient, ruthless, murderous. Every time that Maximilian's on screen, he simply exudes a threatening aura about him, and while he seems obedient to Dr. Reinhardt, he seems to have a mind of his own and his own intentions. Initially, the crew of the Palomino find Dr. Reinhardt eccentric but harmless, and are simply there to find parts to repair their spaceship and be on their way. But the more time they spend there, the mystery deepens about the whereabouts of a seemingly missing crew, and once the truth is uncovered, it becomes a frenzied escape to not only get away from Dr. Reinhardt, but from the gravitational pull of the black hole itself. Visually, The Black Hole is a beautiful film. It uses numerous matte paintings throughout to create the long corridors and the wide hallways. To me, the Cygnus looks like the Tomorrowland sections of the Disney theme parks mixed with a little Space Mountain for good measure. The dark tone and adult themes also help to push Disney Studios in creating both Hollywood pictures and Touchstone pictures for more adult-oriented fare. And I would be remiss in not addressing the film's unusual ending. This is a topic that I enjoy discussing with other black hole fans. Even documentaries I've seen on the black hole, the creators of the film themselves seem often confused as to what that ending actually means. There's the in-movie ending where they did make it through. There's the novelization ending where they didn't make it through, but Kate's ESP managed to hold their consciences together to allow them to survive in some sort of fashion. And then there's the comic adaptation where they went through to the other side and found an alternate universe. But there's still a lot to discuss in terms of the merging of Dr. Reinhardt and Maximilian at the end, where they stand over that hellish landscape, overlooking the former crew of the Cygnus. In watching the film again recently, the Maximilian-Reinhardt hybrid looks very much like a demon's head, overlooking this hellscape. And there's a very strong heaven-hell allegory in this ending. What it actually means? Again, nobody really knows, at least nothing that I've ever had a satisfactory answer on. So if there's something you know and would like to share, then I'd certainly appreciate any feedback in the comments. I'd love to open a conversation on this. As mentioned before, The Black Hole was released to compete with Star Wars, as many other films of that time period tried to. It does have a slower pace that is more comparable to films like Alien, Logan's Run, other 70s film of the time. The difference with Star Wars is that it had a much faster pacing to it, and it helped set the standard for modern films even today. But Disney, being Disney, felt confident enough to release a small series of merchandise, everything from comic books to lunchboxes to action figures, to even a little golden book that had a lighter view of the characters themselves and never hinting at that dark tone that the film had about it. The first computer game that ever featured the black hole was an educational title known as Space Probe Math, which primarily featured elements from the black hole but didn't allow you to control any of the characters or take part into the narrative. I myself have always looked for black hole collectible items, and there's not a lot that's produced. This is one of those dark cult films that Disney, by and large, doesn't really acknowledge that often. Trying to find any sort of merchandise on the black hole is very hard. It's very rare, and when you do find it, it's also very expensive. I do have a few small pieces, but my collection is from more recent acquisitions. Does the black hole have a legacy today? Yes and no. There's still a few nods to it by fans. The character of Vincent has made small cameos in such games as Epic Mickey 2 and Disney Infinity as a small companion. And there are elements of the film that don't hold up as well. Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson called The Black Hole the most scientifically inaccurate film that he's ever seen. And they did take a few liberties with such things, ranging from gravity to the actual physics of a black hole itself, but I think they were trying to go for more action over accuracy. There are some technical elements that don't hold up quite as well. For example, you see strings on some of the characters. There's a fight scene where the audio that's spliced in is a little unintentionally comical, and you can see a lot of separation from where the characters don't blend in as well as they should from the background. That's not to say that the black hole doesn't have some notable action moments, especially with the meteor shower that strikes the Cygnus towards the end. And it helped to pave the way for Disney's other science fiction feature of the time, another cult favorite of mine, the original Tron. There was talks back in 2009 for the film to be remade by Joseph Kosinski, who directed Tron Legacy. Unfortunately, as of 2016, the film has been put on hold, as once again the plot elements were too dark for Disney's modern vision, which primarily focuses on Star Wars and Marvel films these days. Is The Black Hole worth your time? It depends. It's a darker interpretation of Disney than what we're usually accustomed to. Visually, it's a striking film. But even with all its scientific inaccuracies, the film does take itself seriously. Despite having cute robots in it, the film doesn't pander to its audience. And the final grudge match between Maximilian and Vincent seems far more personal between the two than what you would normally expect.